to infinity and beyond!
This is me. This is how I win.
Were you rushing or were you dragging? Answer!
You're a wizard, Harry.
Say what again? Say what again? I dare you.
No. I am your father.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
And here we go.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back inside the film room for another episode of All Timers. Last week, we had Miss Rebecca Davidson on here for the first episode, broke down 13 going on 30. And today we have another very special guest who is also very close to me. This is, you know him from way back in season 1 on the Incredibles 2 review, the Disney Pixar bracket. It's my brother, Drew Goins.
Woo woo! Hello.
Hello, Drew. How are you?
Hello, Zach. I'm good. I'm excited to be here and discuss. I won't spoil it yet.
Yeah, I guess it's in the title of the podcast for anyone who clicks on it. So it's
for our visually impaired listeners, I don't want to give anything up too early.
Okay, understandable. Maybe some trouble for some listeners today when it comes to telling us apart. I know we've been always people say we look alike, but also people have said that our voices are very similar. So I think we should just, each time we talk, we should just give a quick shout out and say, okay, this is Zach speaking.
Drew here. And we are on Zoom, so there might be a good amount of, no, you go ahead. After you.
Can you see my screen? So, Drew, speaking of Zoom, you are in Wyoming right now. How are you doing? We haven't seen each other in months.
It's been a very long time. I'm in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. This is Drew speaking, by the way.
J-Hole.
J-Hole. I've been here since, I guess, the beginning of June. I came out at the end of May, and I'm staying here with my boyfriend and his family. And there's been a lot of wildlife. I've seen far more moose than people since I've been out here, as well as more foxes than people and elk.
And he's not talking about Sam.
But it's been nice, fresh air, wide open spaces, as the Dixie Chicks said. Excuse me, the Chicks.
You mean the
actually.
Chicks?
Yeah, true. They were the Dixie Chicks when we got out here, but the world has been made over in more ways than one.
That it has. So for those of you who have not been listening, I guess, to that last episode, this is All Timers, a new series. For the next few weeks, I will be joined by a rotating slate of guests to break down some all-time classics. Today, it is Drew. Now, we're not necessarily talking Oscar winners or cult favorites, but something a bit more personal. Each week, a new guest will bring their all-time favorite movie inside the film room, and we'll discuss what it is that makes this movie so perfect to them. It can be a Best Picture winner or a Razzie winner. It doesn't matter, as long as it holds a very special place in their heart. It's part rewatchables, part open discussion, and very, very passionate. Today, on the schedule for the Goins brothers is, what is it, Drew?
The Parent Trap. I
like how
we're doing the handshake over Zoom right now.
On the script that I have, it says play trailer excerpt, add and post, but I think we're just going to use that as the transition there. You doing the soundtrack by yourself.
Why the sudden curiosity about your dad, huh?
Mother, you can't avoid the subject forever. At least tell me what he was like. I want to talk to you about my mother.
Well, what about your mother?
Dad, I'm almost 12. How long do you expect me to buy that story that the stork dropped me on your doorstep?
Everyone in the world believes they're unique in their own way. Annie James and Hallie Parker are about to discover.
This freaky.
They're both unique in the same way.
That's my mom. That's my dad. And you and I are like sisters. Hallie, we're like twins. I have a brilliant idea. I think we should switch places. I'll go back to London as you, and you go back to California as me. If we switch, they'll have to unswitch us. And when they do, they'll have to meet again, face to face. Honey, you never...
This is like a sacred text in our household, is it not?
Yes, it is. It was a no-brainer when we were trying to figure out a movie that meant something to the two of us and our relationship. We would watch this probably once a month, at least once every 2 months. It was the standard. If we couldn't find something that we wanted to watch, there was always The Parent Trap, and we would just say, oh, well, we may as well watch The Parent Trap.
Yeah, I mean, I have vivid memories of this. So this may not be, I know the series is called All Timers. This may not be Drew's all-time favorite movie, but I think collectively as the two of us.
Let's see.
I don't want to speak for you.
Keeping that close to my chest. Thank you.
But it is definitely for the two of us, right up there with Ratatouille, I would say, for our brother duo favorite movie.
I definitely agree.
So for those, go ahead.
Oh no, I have to no. I should have used the blue raise hand function. But we got into Ratatouille a little bit in the Incredibles 2 review way back when. So we wanted to give Parent Trap some love.
Yeah. So for those of you who are not familiar, we are talking about the 1998 version with Lindsay Lohan, not the boring old one from the 60s. This is an absolute classic. I would say top 5 movie of all time for me. Definitely top 10, potentially top 5. And that's considering like all of the like best picture winners and like film classic. Like this for me is this like my personal connection with this movie is so strong that it puts it up there with those that are technically speaking better films.
I agree with that. I would also say the original has to be bottom 5, bottom 10 movies globally.
I pulled it up on Disney Plus after this, or after I finished, because it was suggested, and I was like, this just looks awful. Like, it looks so bad. I'm sure for both, like, have you watched it?
I can't say that I have, but
No.
I'm not revising my scoring of it.
Yeah, I have not seen it either, and I think that's honestly shocking for how much we love this version of it, that we haven't ever ventured into that. Because I'm sure, like, I mean, I did some research before this, and it was basically like, they said it was pretty like beat for beat, like on point as a remake. So it was like pretty much the same thing, but it just looks so boring. It looks so bad.
I cannot imagine that in 1961 there were that many lesbians, though.
We'll get into that. Tie-dye girl, we'll get into it. But okay, this is a classic. Most people know it, but I'll give a little bit of a plot synopsis. So The Parent Trap tells the tale of identical twin sisters separated shortly after birth by the breakup of their parents. Unaware of each other's existence, the girls coincidentally meet at summer camp in Maine. Eager to meet their respective parents, the girls devise a scheme to switch places and ultimately reunite their mom and dad.
Did you write that, or was that online?
Shouts to Rotten Tomatoes.
Okay. Credit where credit is due.
Yeah, I'm not that succinct. Starring Lindsay Lohan, Dennis Quaid, Natasha Richardson, Elaine Hendricks, Lisa Ann Walter, and Simon Coons. It's got an 86% on Rotten Tomatoes, 70% audience score. I'm honestly surprised at how high the critics score is there.
Oh, I'm surprised that the critics score is higher than the audience score.
Yeah, I could agree. I feel like just like the fact that it's like a children's Disney movie that like,
but I do think it's like a well-made rom-com. It's Nancy Meyers. Nancy Meyers is a respectable director, you know? And so I'm not all that shocked by it getting a decent showing from the critics on Rotten Tomatoes. But I do think I was surprised that it is not like mid to high 90s beloved in audience score.
This is a shame on Nancy Meyers' IMDb page that Parent Trap is not in the top 4 known for sections. That's a disservice to her legacy.
A travesty.
We have It's Complicated with Meryl Streep and Alec Baldwin. Like, come on. Then Jack or Something's Gotta Give, The Holiday. These all have like the same exact title. The Parent Trap. The same
there was
cover
a meme
art.
a while back. There was a meme a while back of like bots generating Nancy Meyers movie titles off of like Something's Gotta Give, Better Late Than Never, Is It This or That Perhaps? Like, just really vague, like lots of prepositions.
But they do like the photo, text, photo. That's the classic Nancy Meyers layout. I'd never noticed that before. But we spoke on it a little bit earlier. Just the personal relationship with this. I mean, I don't think I got into it, but I have like one specific day where it was like a rainy day that we were upstairs watching this movie, and we like paused it and went downstairs and just like wanted to like pig out and like snack on so much stuff. Like I specifically remember we like put gummy worms in the microwave and like melted them down.
Melted down gummy worms.
That was back in your fat stage. Was this the same day that you made the hot dog with
that.
peanut butter and feta cheese on it?
No, that was a different day, or rather those were different days because I did not just have that once. But yes, that was one of the many times we watched this movie, but that was inspired by the Oreo and peanut butter scene, which I assume we'll also
we wanted to try it because
we wanted to try it, and it started with that, and it just like it got totally out of hand, snowballed, and anyway, I think that day though begat a snack eating culture for us around Parent Trap. I feel like most times after that we would watch the movie, we would, have some snacks with it. That was like a critical part of the culture around watching this movie for us, which is part of what cemented it, in addition to it's just being a bomb-ass movie.
It was also a key, because we had the DVD, it was also like a key rotation in the travel films. So
yes.
We would be in the car with our bougie box TV with the DVD player. We had to double up, had the VHS TV and the DVD TV in the back seat on road trips.
Screens.
But we would stretch out in the back seat with the DVD player, and do you remember the one specific time where like, I don't know if it was like the sun or like the reflection of something or the pixels on the screen, but it was when the little girl's playing the trumpet to wake everyone up, and her face turned.
We like went over a bump, and the like color was out of whack for a second, and her face turned green as she was blowing the bugle. I just thought that was the funniest thing. We like laughed about that for years thereafter.
I mean, that was literally, as I was writing this outline, that was literally one of the first things I put down, green trumpeter. But I mean, this is one, I think it's been a theme, like at least last week with Rebecca talking about 13 going on 30. And I mean, I think it's going to be a theme with anyone who talks about their all-time favorite movies, that it's one that like you have that personal connection with from childhood, and that it still carries over. Like your love does not diminish over whether you're watching it at 9 years old or watching it at 23, 25, like us. Like, what do you think it is that makes this so evergreen? I mean, for me personally, like I thought that there were still stuff that like, I don't know, maybe it's just because I was watching more like critically this time versus like just to enjoy it. But there were like little details that I picked up on that I had never noticed before. Like this is the first time that I ever realized that the Marvas were a mother-daughter combo.
I saw that on your notes, and I do have to ask, are you stupid? Because I feel like that is very obvious. They are Marva and Marva Jr.
Okay, this is also just coming to me right now as a realization, but I had always just assumed that Marva was like a camp title, like one of
not their name.
Correct.
I see.
Like I thought that Marva was like counselor, the name of a counselor that this camp used.
A Marva. Like, that's
like
very
there was
there
was Marva. There was Marva Drew and Marva Zach at Camp Walden. Like that was just like the title.
Right.
And so that I just had assumed.
I love this. I love the cinematic universe. It feels
The
very
MCU.
right. Exactly. I do have one more story about the genesis of this movie for me and for you too, because we saw it for the first time at the same time. And I don't know if you remember this, but we were at our grandmother's timeshare in Myrtle Beach, and we'd gotten there a day before. Shouts to Mama,
friend of the pod.
And we'd gotten there a day before our cousins got in.
Shouts to Christian, also friend of the
also friend of the pod, big supporter. But they told us that, we knew that they were coming up. They were going to get there that night, and we were excited to see them. And we were talking over the phone, and Christian told us that he was bringing this movie to watch tonight, that he was very excited for us to all watch. And the connection was kind of muffled, whatever. They were in the car. And I thought that they were bringing us a movie called The Pirate Trap. And I was very, very excited to watch The Pirate Trap. And I was so disappointed when he showed up with something called The Parent Trap, which sounded so boring and lame. And I think the fact that my expectations were so low going into it, just the quality of this movie blew me even more out of the water. And it was cemented.
And it wasn't because of the pirate cannons.
Correct. And my love for it was just cemented from day one.
I did not remember that. I didn't know that was the first time that we watched it at the Dirty Myrtle.
We watched it at the Dirty Myrtle, and Mama.
Was it at the schooner or was it at the Long Bay?
Schooner. It was the schooner, and friend of the pod, Mama, peeled and cut up some apples and peanut butter for us.
Not Oreos.
Not Oreos, but part of the snacking culture.
Wow. See, now I've learned 2 new things from this rewatch. One other note about the importance of this movie. When Rebecca was studying abroad in London in the spring of 2018, and I went to go visit her for spring break, one of the first things on my London bucket list, first up was Harry Potter, go to the Harry Potter studio tour, and we did that. And second was to go to the James residence.
Much more important.
Exactly. To go to the James residence. And I believe it was in near Hyde Park. It was I don't know my London geography very well, but we walked for miles around neighborhoods trying to find the correct place. And I got to stand outside of Elizabeth James's house. And I'm sure that the owner probably gets tired of people. I don't know. I honestly don't know how many people go and see this house knowing that it's the Parent Trap house, but I'm sure some people do. But
I'm sure they do. This is the Goins brother version of the Salzburg tour where you go see all of the sights and the Sound of Music. There should be London tours specific for here's where this scene happened in Parent Trap.
Here's where the statue that looked like a soldier waved at her.
I also want to get to that. That is one of my unanswered questions.
But I also did. I didn't just see it. I did with my friend Madeline. I did the handshake in front of the house. So it was. I know you were upset about that.
I was very hurt by it because another of our connections to the movie is that we learned the handshake a long, long time ago, and we do it when we are first seeing each other or last seeing each other, before or after a long time apart.
Accompanied with missing you already, Queen of my heart.
Queen of my heart, including the dialogue. Take care, old bean.
With the kiss on the forehead. So, I think it's pretty safe to say that this is an iconic film. I think we've laid the groundwork for why this film was selected for our all-timers, our combined all-timers. But we already kind of addressed the 1961 version that sucks. but I guess we have to give a hat tip to it because it laid the foundation for what we got in 1998. But
if we must,
I want to talk about the genre. Last week's episode have you seen 13 Going on 30?
I have not, I'm afraid to say.
But we talked about the genre, like first of all, like the coming of age genre, but then the subgenre within that is the like swapped bodies of like Freaky Friday or like 13 going on 30, that kind of like 17 again. But this is another subgenre, I would say, of like actors acting opposite themselves, playing, whether it's like playing twins or something like that. And I put down some examples here. I don't know if you've seen all of these, but first of all, the great Adam Sandler in Jack and Jill. But I'd like to, if you have any to throw in here, just some of the ones that stand out to you. I mean, Armie Hammer played the Winklevoss twins in Social Network.
Yes,
Paul Rudd in the Netflix show, this Living with Yourself, that just came out last year. Jake Gyllenhaal in Enemy. Shouts to Uncle Dave Benioff for Will Smith in Gemini Man. That was a great one. He plays 3 versions of himself. And then actually this week, coming out tomorrow, I guess today by the time people listen to this, Seth Rogen in An American Pickle. He plays his great-great-grandfather and himself in the same movie.
Right, yes.
Do you have any
trailers for that?
Do you have any that stand out to you other than Lindsay Lohan, of course? And that old lady that played it in 1961?
Yeah, Haley Mills, I think. Trash.
One of the things that I noted, I had written it down as a question and then I realized that it was dumb, was that I said, was this acting opposite yourself like revolutionary at the time? And then I was like, wait, they made this movie in 1961 and did the same thing, so not revolutionary.
Right. Though, I mean, the techniques were totally different. It was much harder in 1961, I assume, right? Because you didn't have, like, computer editing.
So I would assume that there in that 1961 version, there were no shots, like face shots of them together on screen at the same time. It was probably like a front of the head, back of the head kind of thing. Whereas in this, like with what you're talking about with the digital editing, that they were able to like superimpose, I don't know what the terminology is, but like get them together at the same time.
Right. So same actors playing multiple roles. I feel like there's the ones that are jumping to mind to me feel like they're in a different category. I think of like Cloud Atlas, where Tom Hanks plays like, shut up, where I love that movie, where Tom Hanks plays like 6 different roles and Halle Berry plays like 6 different roles, but they're not like playing opposite each other. Like Tom Hanks is not playing opposite Tom Hanks.
Like Daveed Diggs playing Thomas Jefferson and Lafayette.
Marquis de Lafayette, for sure. Or like Dick Van Dyke and Mary Poppins, you know. So
not really the challenges of like being on screen at the same time. Because I remember it was like fascinating when Living with Yourself came out with Paul Rudd. It was during his Hot Ones interview that they were talking about like how he went about it, that he would like have an earpiece in as he was acting and like listening to himself like say the lines of the other person so that he could know how to respond and stuff. So, and that like he had to work on like different manner. I mean, I guess in this movie they're trying to be like identical, but like in that he had different mannerisms depending on which character he was playing.
Yeah, there was also that Mark Ruffalo movie, right?
It's a show on HBO right now, I believe, where he's playing twins.
Okay, I see. Yeah, I just looked up some of them and none of them, unfortunately. I mean, I know I'm supposed to have seen Being John Malkovich, but I did not see Being John Malkovich.
Nor have I. But, I mean, I think that as long as you see Parent Trap and Jack and Jill, you've got it covered.
Perfect.
So, do you want to get into some categories here as we get into the sort of rewatchables-esque portion of this?
I would love to, Zach. This is Drew speaking.
First up, favorite scenes. I mean, we would just say the whole movie itself, but we can kind of break it down a little more specifically. So first, minor chronologically, we can just speak about each one as we go. Does that sound good?
Right. Yeah. That sounds good.
Jump in if I'm missing any that you have noted, okay?
Okay.
So first off, it's very personal to the two of us because of our copycat, but the first Annie Martin handshake as he drops her off at camp. I mean, that's iconic. That's when I first knew that this was something special. When that banana kicked in, whew.
It's a magic. I mean, it's beautifully choreographed. American Ballet Theater, who? I mean, we see there's like we don't see it, but like you're meant to feel that there's a spark when Hallie and Annie touch their hands for the first time. But the real spark is, 11-year-old Annie and her middle-aged gay but not gay butler doing a handshake.
I don't know what you're talking about because Martin is slaying it, okay, with Chessy, but that's something we'll get into later.
Yes.
But there's a lot to unpack there, and I'm not just talking about him in the Speedo. Hey-ho.
Hey-ho.
So next up on our list, Hallie and Annie fencing. I mean, that's just in a movie that's like pretty straightforward. That's your massive set piece right there. Like that's your Michael Bay-esque set piece, doing stunt choreography through the camp. Just young Marva Jr. needs to get that camp in line. I mean, what is the rules here? How does she not have control?
Okay. I imagine that she is reluctant to, enforce any greater control than she does because she sees the sword fighting abilities of these campers and is terrified of them. I have so many thoughts about this scene. Both Hallie and Annie, who grew up extremely differently in other sides of the world, extremely different circumstances, they are both insanely good at fencing. Which my immediate question is how, and I thought about this for pretty much the rest of the movie last night as I was rewatching it. And the only explanation that I could think of was before, Lizzie and Nick decided that they were going to go their separate ways and never see each other again. They picked their daughters and they said, okay, raise them however you please. We'll never see each other again.
Just as long as you teach them fencing.
But one thing that we each must do, each of these girls must be trained in combat.
Is this when you, at this point in the film, during your first watch, is this when you thought, so here's where the pirates come in. Here's where the pirate trap is sprung.
I was perhaps not totally sold on the movie yet, and this was my, grumbling, begrudging, this is all right, I guess.
But yeah, I mean, I just think that's a very valid point, all of your sword play talk there. But the fact that there's a very clearly defined fencing area. And I'm sure, I don't know the intricacies of the sport, but I'm sure that you're supposed to stay linear and not
You definitely
go off into the forest or onto the porch. And also, there's just like crowds of campers walking around that have to scatter. But I mean, it's iconic. You talked about it with the hands brushing, but you get the big fight, and then of course the pulling down into the trough of water that is also next to the fencing course.
Well, okay, I imagine there are horses at this camp. In my headcanon, there are horses at this camp, even though we never see them on screen.
Makes sense.
The trough suggests their existence.
And then this leads into one of the all-time great that we'll talk about when we get to quotes a little later on, but the first realization of them seeing that they're actually super similar, that they have that spark when their hands touch, and then a great roast from Hallie to Annie. So, I mean, I think that's just an all-time scene. Moving on. Next scene, the prank. I mean, we get the prank war, so there's a series of pranks here between the two.
This is the Hiroshima, Nagasaki. This ensures
this is the culmination
of the war. This means that there will be no more casualties after, because this is an act of such cruelty that Annie has no ability to strike back at this point.
Of course, this is the dousing the cabin in string and honey and water balloons, shaving cream, feathers, chocolate milk that's very thick.
I don't think it's chocolate milk. Well, I think
doesn't she say got milk or something like that though? She says some milk related joke as they're pouring it in.
I was trying to look at the barrel. I didn't get a good look at it, but what they were pouring in, and I thought it said chicory syrup on it. But I may be trying to dramaturg this movie in a way there's no basis for. I don't think it's chocolate milk though.
I mean, that would be very thick. They homemade chocolate milk and left all the syrup at the bottom. But I mean, that's a great. Also, speaking of the bucket, there's way more. that comes out, then that bucket is capable of holding. Like, I mean, let's just make let's say it what it is. This movie is not perfect, and that's one of the things. one of the small details, but that's a great scene. That's when I had my really good morning, Marva, or good morning, campers. Marvas.
Morning, Marvas. Marvas.
But yeah, another great scene. And then that, of course, leads to the punishment where they go to the isolation cabin.
Iconic, destination.
Yeah, and let's go ahead. I had a bunch of unanswered questions about this, and I'll just kind of rope them into this discussion here to keep things flowing. But so first of all, let's talk about the scene. But so that's when they go to the isolation cabin and they have this. That's what serves as the vessel to bring them together. They have the window that's open that they team up to close. And
the isolation cabin is a locus of self-discovery. That's my critical theory take on the Parent Trap. And there is an alternate version of the Parent Trap somewhere out there in some universe where the isolation cabin slowly devolves and it becomes a psychological thriller where we realize there is only one Lindsay Lohan.
That's like another Enemy, that movie with Jake Gyllenhaal where he plays the opposite version of himself. That's what happens there. So maybe that's where Denny.
Spoilers.
maybe Denny Villeneuve got his thoughts from.
He saw the isolation cabin and it was like light bulb over his head.
But I mean, it leads to the Oreo scene, the photograph, the realization that they are in fact not sisters but twins, and there's some iconic quotes in there as well. But that's just, again, this movie is it's divided into like two parts. It's like the camp part, the pre-realization, and then the post. Maybe even three parts, like a classic 3-act play.
I think it's I noted this earlier. I think this is a very classic 5-act structure, a la Shakespeare. And I mean, we can talk about that later if there's interest. But yes, I agree that it is a very clearly delineated movie. But before we get too far, can I jump back to a different favorite scene?
Yes, of course.
So all-time iconic scene of this movie, I think, is the poker game.
Of course.
Unforgettable.
This is the strike back to the fencing victory that Annie claimed.
Right, exactly. So this is when they're in the cabin. Annie is holding court, playing poker. It's been established that she's a very good poker player.
And Hallie comes in to whip her tush.
Hallie comes in with this "can I speak to the manager" haircut, swinging her little bag of coins to "bad to the bone," underscoring the music. She's like very cool girl energy. And she comes in and they start, playing poker. And all of the girls are like crowding around, like seeing the hands. They're clearly like two camps of the girls.
They each have their own
led by
posse.
Annie, one led by Hallie. Yeah, and they're looking over their like shoulders and peering at the cards and like nodding knowingly. Like this camp full of card sharks knows exactly what's going on. And
I'm dumb. I still don't know how to play poker, so I doubt that all of these 11-year-old girls know how to play.
Right, exactly. But so they start like throwing more and more on. They're feeling good about it. And then Annie has a straight flush, incredibly unlikely hand. And then Hallie puts down a royal flush, which is an even more unlikely hand, which that's one thing I love. The movie establishes that they're very good at poker by getting dealt very lucky hands. Like there's no skill involved. But so I did some math for the likelihood of those two hands together, because I mean, 52 cards in a deck, those two hands existing at the same time, the odds are 1 in 47 billion.
You know what they say about the Parent Trap, that this movie is 1 in 47 billion. Like that's how good it is.
I mean, that's how I feel about it. But so I did the math, and like 47 billion, if you are dealing one hand every single second, it would take just under 1,500 years to ensure that you get that hand.
you were talking about the different universe, the alternate universe where the Parent Trap has the bad isolation cabin. So I guess this is the one universe of the 57 billion or 47 billion that had the perfect
Of the Parent Trap multiverse.
the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Right. Right. This is the like lightest timeline.
Yeah, exactly. Community reference. This is so I'll save my unanswered questions so we can just really dive deep into that all together. But moving on in favorite scenes, I mean, I think this is a great heartwarming one after the camp, after the split to the plan has been devised. They head their separate ways, and Hallie is playing Annie in London. And it's the Here Comes the Sun montage where Hallie secretly as Annie is joining her mother as the bridal photo shoot happens. It's her first time to really be with her mom at all, but to definitely see her in action doing what she loves is this like super cool designer. And it's like the little like bad radio, but like me, she points to herself like when she asks her for help, but right. That's she's just like she's like, she can't believe that she's here being asked to do something to help her. I will say, terrible. I'm questioning Elizabeth James's skills
designs
as she puts a veil on a top hat. I don't know if that, first of all, top hats
very 90s. It's very Amy Sherman Palladino.
But I don't know if that even solved the problem that she had of the veil covering the back of the dress. But
right, it covers like 4 fewer inches of the back of the dress.
And also, they need a new photographer in this scene because she jumps, Hallie as Annie jumps into the scene and is like right in there with this mysterious bride who I don't know why she would want Annie in her photos, but it has like a couple like snapshots and stuff, and they're all blurry.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
It's like, come on, get your action shots.
I think this is for like a magazine spread, though. I don't think this is like a bride to be getting her,
right.
wedding,
I guess that makes sense.
Done.
So it's a little more fun and out there.
Fun fact: Martin, the guy who plays Martin, initially auditioned for that photographer, and they liked him so much that they said, well, actually, why don't you be this butler character that we're writing?
Wow, I didn't include the half-assed internet research section of this review. But,
well, you're very welcome.
I'm glad you chipped some in here.
I totally agree. I just want to weigh in. This is my favorite scene of the movie. Natasha Richardson as Elizabeth James is just so effortlessly chic. She is so fabulous. She's hyper competent. Like we understand that she is so good at her job, like working mom, whatever.
Taking calls from bed.
It's just effortlessly, it's breezy. She's speaking French in her like white silk bed, in her white silk pajamas. As a little gay boy watching this movie, I so desperately wanted Elizabeth James to be my mom. She's like Grace Kelly. I'm getting gayer and gayer, and I think this is just a good way to tell me and Zach apart. But oh my, like I stan Natasha Richardson more than I stan any other female celebrity, and I truly took it so hard when she died. I was in middle school, I guess, or early high school, and she died in that horrible skiing accident, and I was truly devastated. I died. I didn't die. She died. I cried. And like last night when I was watching the movie, I'd had a couple glasses of wine with dinner, and then I was drinking whiskey during the movie. But she comes on and she like hugs Annie, and she has the bridal photo shoot, and tears are just like streaming down my face. And I turned to my boyfriend who's watching it with me, and I said, I just love her so much.
I'm glad that you're able to connect with this so much. And because I mean, I didn't have that same reaction to that scene, but it's one of my favorites. But this next scene that I'm about to talk about did bring tears to my eyes.
Oh, me too. I don't want to spoil it, but go ahead. Me too.
So this is like the opposite end of the spectrum, where Hallie is now, I guess Annie is now in California with Hallie, or pretending to be Hallie, sorry. And first of all, we'll get into it later, but Nick is oblivious. He thinks it's just his regular daughter. But
Like, call Child Protective Services.
Chessy, the help. What I don't know what her. I guess she's not really a butler, but like she's not a maid either. She's more of a live-in assistant. But she
wait, to use Elizabeth's language about Martin, that occurs later in the movie. She's more like a lovable sister who happens to wait on us.
Exactly. And she's also a mother, because she is the mother that Hallie never had before meeting Elizabeth finally. But so Annie's here in disguise as Hallie, and Chessy immediately knows that something is up, and she's kind of been onto her for a couple of days. Sammy the dog doesn't come around. The
dog is a better parent than Nick Parker.
That's true. But Chessy's like, oh, why don't you eat? Are you speaking French? Why do you say this? This is so different. What about you speaking to your friend at midnight? And she's on to her. She like knows something is wrong. And she's like, it's almost as if, nah, it's impossible. First, I don't know why she would say that.
I know. That's like a very Nancy Myers, like nobody would ever say this in real life. She literally goes, it's almost as if you were, no, impossible.
But that aside, it has to be done to set up what comes next, which is Annie revealing, almost as if I'm Annie. She's like, you know about Annie? And then she goes, I am Annie. And it's just
Annie.
And it's just, she immediately starts tearing up, and then Nick comes in and almost ruins the scene, but Chessy's she's like, I'm just looking at her like I always did when she was first born at 9 pounds, blah, blah, ounces. And
I've looked at her every day like this, every day since we brought her home from the hospital, 6 pounds, 11 ounces. This is the way that I look at her.
Wow, is that you? Were you Chessy? And then she offers to make her the feast and everything.
She goes, you hungry? You want something to eat? You know what? I'm just going to whip up everything we've got.
Wow, I feel like I'm zooming with Chessy right now, but that's
be so lucky.
I teared up at that point because it was just like the emotion is so real, and that she's like cared about. She's the real MVP here. I mean, I know you stan Natasha, but I mean, I think that Chessy. There was a meme. It was on Twitter a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago at this point, but it was just talking about how Chessy is like the greatest parent in this movie and the greatest parent in like cinematic history, that she was able to realize so quickly. But I mean, that's an incredible scene. And I think that it's nice that they have the one that we were just talking about, but then this as well. It's like they're able to balance it and have these sort of emotional beats on both sides of the story.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of Chessy, I love the Martin and Chessy meetup. This is the real underlying storyline here.
A B plot for the ages.
Forget Nick and Meredith. Forget Nick and Elizabeth. This is the true romance here. Martin and Chessy meeting for the first time. Him kissing her hand. But just their whole their whole relationship is iconic, and we'll get into a little bit more of that later on. But it's great. I think that they're both scene stealers. Anything,
Agreed.
any that I've missed?
I don't want to rock the boat too much, but I worship so fervently at the altar of Chessy that I do not think Martin is good enough for her. So I'm not sure that I entirely support this relationship.
Okay. I mean, well, that's heartbreaking to hear. I mean, nobody deserves Chessy, but I mean. It's hard. He's like the next best. I don't know where he goes wrong in your book.
Moving on. The next scene on this list, I mean, we've pretty much broken down the whole movie, but Nick and Liz, their reunion, it's more of a fun scene and a little emotion, but where Nick falls in the pool, they're all like converging. This is I guess this would be like the fourth act. Maybe end of the third act, that the storylines are finally end of the third act. Act 3.
The storylines are finally coming together. The plan is fully into motion. They're bringing everyone back together, and I think it's great to see them because Liz is drunk. She's been She's kind of woozy still. They've slowly been weaving stuff together with twins getting mixed up, her meeting Meredith at the bar, like everything's starting to come together, and then it's just like a big splash, if you will.
I certainly will.
But I mean, I think that's a fun scene, and then you get that kind of the sparks start to fly again as they kind of rekindle the flame. Any thoughts on that?
The one thing sorry, I froze for a second. The one thing I will add to that scene, the most iconic part for me is when Nick touches his eye, he's drying himself off, and he realizes that he has a cut on his eyebrow. And Elizabeth flags down a pool attendant and says, do you have a first aid kit? And the pool attendant goes, yeah, sure. Like super California. And then is off screen for conservatively 2.5 seconds. And then immediately comes back on screen. I don't think there are even any lines. And she comes back on screen with this first aid kit and just is like, here you go, which is absolutely not how it would work. You cannot just give a first aid kit to a guest and like go off on your way.
We are suing this hotel for everything they're worth.
Right.
Especially with Meredith here. Meredith's talking about the million reasons. She's trying to secure the bag and take this hotel down.
The Stafford has had better lawyer up is all I'm saying.
So after that, this is in the fourth act. This act structure is really
okay.
Doing a doozy
First act, let me, here's how I break it up. I think I misspoke earlier. To me, the first act is camp until they realize, right? Until they realize they're twins. Second act is planning to switch places, switching places. Third act is, oh God, I'm losing my place now.
Third act is living in their respective places. Fourth is coming together, and then fifth is camping / reconciliation.
Yeah, more or less.
So this is in the fifth act, I guess.
Act 5, yeah.
But the hiking pranks on Meredith. Again, we've seen what they're capable of doing, the twins at camp as they've pranked each other. Now they've been able to put their evil geniuses together and team up on a mutual villain. And we've got putting rocks in her bag to slow her down, hurt her back. We've got the lizard on the bottle that ends up on the head and into the mouth. Sugar water as mosquito repellent. The mattress in the lake. It's just ruthless. Like, I mean, these twins rival.
You forgot the best one though. The best one of the clap for the mountain lions.
Yeah, we can only. It's not explicitly stated, but we can only assume that at some point Hallie and Annie have warned her that mountain lions will come to get her. That's
and
the
that
underlying
they are
message.
Scared off by slapping twigs together.
Right, but I mean, I would say that these two together rival Kevin McAllister in terms of like ingenuity and like just evil genius coming from a child. Like when they want to, they can really just like give him a run. I mean, his is obviously more of like a protection than just like mischief. But
I think the cabin is on the same sort of Rube Goldberg level as the way Kevin McAllister in Home Alone booby traps the house. I think the pranks on Meredith are a little more garden variety, I will say.
Okay. I mean, Kevin McAllister is like the holy grail of
God tier.
Yes, exactly. So we do not take that comparison lightly. I may have misspoke. I may have overstepped my boundaries there, but I do have a question about this final prank with the mattress in the lake. That's the one that crosses the line and officially ends things. We never see like a wide shot of the entire lake. How big do you think is this a pond or is it a lake? Like potentially how far could she have floated out? Like could she have died? Could she have like flown? Like is it connected to like a river? Could she have like
right? I am picturing
too far.
Right. I am picturing just off screen a waterfall.
She luckily got stuck in some twig in like a downed limb or something like that corralled her.
Exactly. Like this is I am picturing like a Spectre style. I think it's Inspector. But just like the drop that James Bond takes hundreds of yards down into the like frothing water and rocks, and we all think he's dead.
A murder on their behalf would not be the first federal crime that these two have committed, which we'll get to.
Yes, I'm so excited to hear more.
But
Although
final
murder would be prosecuted by the state, I do have to say, unless they are in a national park. Unless they're in a national park, which they well may be. So,
excuse my legal jargon there.
Regarding the size of the lake, trying to geolocate it is a bit confusing because they live in Napa, right? They are driving from Napa, but Nick makes the comment that I think it's Nick makes the comment. Meredith is struggling, and he says, "Oh, it must be the altitude." So driving from Napa to a place where altitude would cause, altitude sickness or difficulty breathing, that's a long car ride. And you can get into some spots there up in the Tetons, for instance, after a long drive, where you have some beautiful smaller lakes.
However, they leave the house, no top in sight on the Jeep. So might not be going too far. No, not getting on an interstate with that kind of setup on your car. So
that's true.
Worth noting there. We can really break that down. But we have two final scenes here, and in the favorites, the wine cellar scene where Nick and Liz really start to rekindle. It's like they're so close to getting back together. Meredith is out of the picture. They're finally having a romantic evening, and then he dusts off the bottle of wine. He tells her he has every single bottle of the wine that they had at their wedding, and she gets dust in her eyes. Okay, Liz. And then Chessy and Martin just kind of
cock block
it. They cock block it, yeah.
Right.
And then of course
there's this beautiful shot in the cellar where she backs up.
The light is on her eyes,
and she has the ray of light across her eyes. It is she has never been more stunning. Unfortunately, she will never be more stunning.
That's really setting up for the grand finale, which is, of course, we'd heard that Nick is upset that he hadn't chased after her before, and when the first split happened, he didn't know that she wanted him to, and that's really what got between them. But then, as they're parting ways once again, they revert back to the original plan of Hallie with Nick, Annie with Liz in London, and then some occasional visitations. But as they head to London, then the California crew hops on the Concorde, beats them to it, pulls the old switcheroo with grandfather in the newspaper, and they reveal that Nick is chased after her. The family is not splitting up, and it's a happy ending for the Parker/James clan. It's just all you can ask for.
As we were watching last night, they get into the house and they say, we're home, grandfather, where are you? And I guess Elizabeth says, I'll check the study. And Sam, my boyfriend at that point goes, oh my God, is he dead?
Had he never seen this?
Which he saw it years and years ago, but I love that as yet another path in the multiverse. I love how different a movie it would have been if grandfather had died and they had reunited at his funeral.
That's just the end. Not even if they don't even have that part. It's just they get home, grandfather's dead, and then the movie ends. No funeral, no reunion.
To black, right?
What is that movie saying about the world?
What is the postmodern ending to The Parent Trap?
That would be, what is it? Come on, Sam, you're better than that. But I mean, I would say you already said that your favorite scene is the photo shoot montage with Hallie/Annie and Elizabeth. I think mine is Chessy. That's my go-to. Chessy realizing that Hallie is actually Annie. But again, if we didn't break this down scene by scene, we could have easily just said the entire movie. I mean, it's all one giant favorite scene. Moving on, next category. We've got the what aged the best and what aged the worst. This movie came out in 1998, still holds up extremely well 22 years later, in my opinion. Agreed. I would believe that you say the same, and I think that we'll do the best parts here first, but I think that the score and soundtrack, two separate things, but score and soundtrack are just iconic.
Yes, both rarely do you have a movie where the score and the soundtrack both are, just out of this world, next level.
Right. I mean the theme from the banana that part, and then also like
Right.
the like dun 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 dun, and like also
Oh yeah, the little mischief music and
right. They've got like the
classic
sneaking pranking music.
ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum, bum,
Yes,
bum,
you're the
bum,
musical one. I
ba-da-dum,
should let you
bum,
do
bum.
this. But I mean, it's just like there are so many recognizable motif. Is it motifs?
It's like
Is that the right?
motifs, yeah, or leitmotifs.
It's like in Lost, how
It's like
every character had a theme, or Harry Potter, or Star Wars, anything
It's
like
more, yeah. I mean, it's more like Wagnerian leitmotifs, which is like the Harry Potter style, versus Lost, which was each associated with the character. That was more of like Straussian leitmotifs. But I truly think this is like Harry Potter level of recognizable different themes throughout the movie, at least among the Parent Trap fan base.
that. Right. I mean, I'm not going to say this is like
The redheads,
recognizable with
like
John Williams or Hans Zimmer or anything like that. But like, I mean, this is one of the ones that it's for us. It holds up well. I can hear like two notes from it and immediately know that it's Parent Trap.
Right. Agreed.
But then also along with that, the soundtrack, the soundtrack, which is obviously the music, not just like the orchestral fanfare. But I mean, you've got right off the bat, Love, Love.
Right. Opening with Nat King Cole, love it. Sets the tone. I think it's perfect. Like perfect needle drop for that opening montage without any dialogue. It feels like a prologue for the movie. It's chef's kiss.
Yeah, I mean, and that's one that also like I can't hear that song now and not immediately think Parent Trap. Like that's just like the connotation, the association there. It's just those two go together. And then you've also got, like you mentioned, Bad to the Bone. Do You Believe in Magic? There She Goes. Here Comes the Sun. Like there are so
Also
many.
good. And then we end with a Natalie Cole song. This Will Be an Everlasting
This will
Love.
be.
Yeah. Nat King Cole's daughter.
Love. But I mean, it's just there are so many bangers on this soundtrack.
So many bangers.
So I mean, I would say that the music all around has aged incredibly well.
It feels like, one of those 90s like soundtracks that was on some level engineered for people to buy the soundtrack and like play it in their cars as they were driving around, like teenage girls, like they
It's like it's got like the biggest hits from from like the time period or even like before.
Right. It's a good mixtape basically. Like you can you can put that soundtrack in your car and drive to, I don't know, Limited 2 or whatever was happening in the 90s at the mall.
Auntie Anne's pretzel stand. Another thing that I would say aged very well are the costumes. I think that they're still like impeccably well dressed here, whether it's
with one notable exception, I have to say.
The kimono.
Well, it's a cheongsam, not a kimono, but we'll get to that when we get to aged worst.
Yes, so the costumes for the most part. I mean, whether it's Annie's absolute fits, like Annie or whoever's playing Annie, like she's just like
killing the game.
From the like pencil suit, the pantsuit. It's not a pantsuit, it's like a dress, but it's like the pencil, I don't know, style. But what she wears to show up to camp. When she's just like
in that like houndstooth pattern too.
And then like she's got the blue suit that she wears for the wedding photo shoot thing, and then she's got like I guess I don't know if it's Hallie or Annie at that point, but it's supposed to be Annie with the yellow outfit at the hotel.
Right,
like,
with the hairband.
Yes, I mean it's just like all of them. She's serving.
Lots of like bomber jackets, like preteen girl bomber jackets.
But then it's also like the fits from Hallie are good as well. Like the obviously more casual, like on the ranch style outfits, the camping outfits, the leather jackets.
Lots of big loose button downs. Like that is totally an aesthetic that is here.
When they
for quarantine, I mean, like honestly style goals the way that they dress at Parker Knoll.
When they have the make, they're like, oh, we're not telling you who's who, and they're both wearing the polo button downs.
Right.
Great look.
Chessy has some gorge mom jeans that she wears. I gotta say, Meredith is looking just snatched throughout.
And that Martin Speedo.
pass. Um, but I mean, Meredith's athleisure look with the Prada bag, slaying.
Meredith's big
honey.
hat in her introduction.
Oh, that is
Sun hat.
that is an iconic shot when she tilts up the sun hat. She raises her head and you see her. With
And
that
it's got like the
red lip.
saxophone. It's got like the like smooth jazz music.
Right.
Nicky Parker when he unbuttons the button, got the chest hair out.
Sex idol.
It's just it's a great, with the exception of that one that we'll talk about. But I mean, costumes hold up incredibly well. Another thing, Elaine Hendricks, her performance as Meredith Blake, one of the all-time great villains. We did the movie monster draft a couple months ago on the podcast. Jake and I did, and people were picking like Godzilla and like Dracula and stuff. And Meredith Blake was my number one because she is a monster. She's a stone cold killer. She is not willing. She will run over two 11-year-olds if that means her getting her $1 million. Like, she's just devious.
There has been a trend or an attempt online to try to rehabilitate Meredith Blake of late, I think, as, merely a bad bitch, and actually she's someone to aspire to. I am opposed to this. I think a close textual reading belies that interpretation. Like, she is truly vile. Like, she's not just, here to, I don't know, I ran out of steam there.
It's okay. But I agree. I know where you're going with that, and I agree. I mean, she's literally like a homewrecker, gold digger, like all of those like stereotypical like things about a woman who's trying to just like secure the bag and do it at whatever cost. Like,
I do think she was a Romney to Clinton voter, whereas I do think Nick Parker was an Obama to Trump voter, unfortunately.
Wow, another close reading from you. I hadn't broken down the political leanings of these characters, but interesting.
The only consistently making the right calls character, Chessy.
Oh yes, Chessy, always on the right side of history. I will say one question for you. One of the things that I guess I'd never really thought about as a child watching this movie, Meredith Blake is 26.
Right. She looks
You
much
are
older.
25. Yes, you are 25. You are nearly 26. How does it feel to be that age? Do you feel it's
I feel
strange
behind.
I always thought of her as much older.
I feel I am not anywhere close to securing a vineyard-owning daddy.
You have Sam. He has a ranch in Wyoming. Just plant some grapes and you're good.
This is true. But he doesn't have the same chest hair, unfortunately. No, I mean, it does, as someone else who works in media, I mean, we see that Meredith is a publicist, so I feel a certain affinity there. But she does feel she has a certain, like, she acts like a woman in her 30s. Like, she feels she has so much time to, like, lock this down, I do think there is a bright future for Meredith Blake, for better.
I was going to ask that
after this movie ends.
I was going to ask that. What do you think happens to Meredith Blake after this? Does she go and find does she correct herself? Does she realize her wrongs, or does she just go and do the same thing with another rich older man?
I don't think she realizes her wrongs. I think she realizes her mistakes, and she refines her strategy.
Right.
And she gets what she wants ultimately, which isn't a bad thing necessarily. I
feel like she definitely is someone who has multiple sugar daddies
throughout her life.
Yes. Like, maybe before trying to settle down to like the long con with Nick Parker, like, she definitely, like, from 18 to 24 had multiple sugar daddies.
I think Meredith Blake, I have a different reading here. I think Meredith Blake dated early and just was sick of people her age, maybe early in college. And then she didn't have sugar daddies throughout the rest of college, but she decided, she was like, I'm not dating anymore. I'm single-mindedly focusing on this goal of once I'm out and about, once I'm a professional, I'm going after like a rich older man. because she says that Nick Parker is exactly the type of person she's always wanted to be with.
That's true. That's true. I guess being nearly 26, you just get her on another level that I don't.
Yeah, exactly. You'll understand in a few years. We can revisit.
Last little bit of something that aged well, very small compared to these other things. I thought the lizard CGI still holds up pretty good. Obviously a real lizard when it's like being picked up and placed on her head, but then when it crawls down the face and goes in the mouth,
looks very good. I agree with that.
From 1998, I don't know if this is like a George Lucas situation where he like goes back and re-edits Star Wars and like updates stuff, or if this is just like straight from 98. This is what it looked like, because it's still very nice.
This was the remastered release of The Parent Trap, and that's the only thing that they changed.
There's actually a Force ghost of Chessy. But yeah, great stuff there. I mean, really holds up. On the other side, though, what doesn't hold up. First off, should we just go ahead and address the outfit, the problematic outfit?
Let's get it out of the way. So she's wearing a cheongsam, which is like a formal, Chinese dress
with chopsticks in the hair.
With chopsticks in the hair. I was like, she walks out with it. This is the scene where they're having dinner on the boat, and she walks out, and I'm like, ooh, and Sam goes, oh, I think that's kind of pretty. And then she turns around and we see the chopsticks in her hair, and Sam goes, oh no. It's bad. I mean, it's cultural appropriation. We saw this play out on the internet 2 years ago, maybe a couple years ago, when some like Mormon BYU or I guess high schooler in Utah wore it to her prom, and she got roasted online for it. And there was this whole, round of Twitter commentary on it. That outfit would not make an appearance if they were to do this movie now.
Right. I also think that it's just, it was very random. Like we talked about how they had been like hitting on all cylinders, and then this was just like a miss. They finally had it
out of place.
Right. It doesn't seem like either of their characters would wear, especially Hallie.
Right.
For her being more of like I guess not rugged, but like that kind of like California lifestyle versus like the high class, like kind of outfits that Annie would wear. Like this would be maybe something that I guess she's still rich as Hallie, but like that more would be in Annie's wheelhouse if it was in anyone's. But one more thing, minor, but Hallie roasting Annie for the resemblance. It's 2020, Hallie. I know this was 1998, but if you're talking about the remake, we can't have you putting down other women, especially ones that are so close to you.
Speak on it.
We don't need you to talk about ears and nose and teeth and all that stuff. Like, build her up so that you can both be strong and powerful women that can rely on each other.
Very AOC of you.
Having a twin that looks like you does not make you a good man.
Does not make a decent man. Switching places to reunite with your parents does not make a man decent. Speaking of reunited parents, though, one thing I will say does not hold up. This is my least favorite scene in the movie, partially because I feel like it drags, partially because I feel like the dialogue is very wooden, but partially for what I'm about to say. The scene in the car after Nick picks Annie, pretending to be Hallie, up from the airport, and she's saying "Dad" over and over again. She's ending every sentence with "Dad," and Nick asks her, "Oh, why are you ending every sentence with Dad?" And she starts talking about how she missed saying "Dad." She'd love to say "Dad." Every girl needs to be able to say "Dad." Every kid needs a mom and dad. It's very heteronormative, and for a movie that is so lesbian centric, I think there is a lot of centering of fatherhood in this. Very, very alienating to same-sex couples, especially the many lesbians that appear in Act 1 of this movie.
At least you're covered, though, on the dad front.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And then the only other thing that aged poorly is airport security, I think.
Yes, which again we'll get into more.
This is clearly a pre-9/11 world.
I was also wondering, what do you think the purpose? Not purpose, but like, do you think it was intentional that like when she's at the terminal in London, that it's like the most diverse terminal in the world.
Oh yeah,
like
for
there's
sure.
there's like
Yeah.
there's like the 3 men in like the Middle Eastern dress, and then there's like an Asian family, and then a black woman, and then like a white man. Like it's like a very is it supposed to like paint London as like a diverse hub in the world?
That's kind of what Heathrow is like, as I understand it. I flew into Gatwick when I went to London because that's like the budget option. But that's how I understand. I mean, Heathrow has a lot of that, to be fair.
Just making it a realistic film.
Although Heathrow, it looks like a third world airport in that set that they were using. It looked like the airport that like you and I have flown into in like small town north shore of the Dominican Republic.
So I think there's one answer here. This next category is called Apex Mountain. It's where we talk about who or what peaked during this movie. It can be a person, it can be a character, it can be a concept. But I mean, I think that the obvious answer, and it's sad.
Before, I compiled a list. Can I read through my list of things that peaked in this movie, please?
Yes, of course. Go ahead. I didn't realize that there were so many.
Transatlantic liners, Nat King Cole, The Length of Time, 11 years and 9 months, Duffels, Female Friendship, Vitamins and Minerals, The State of Maine, The Beautiful Leonardo DiCaprio, Broken/Non-Traditional Families, The Beatles, Top Hat Wedding Veils, 90 Day Fiancés, Long Distance Telephone Calls, Gay But Not Gay Butlers, The French Language, Hair Dryers as Projectiles, Evian, The 5-Act Structure, Pathetic Fallacy, and the last one is I think what you're going to say, so I'll leave that to you.
Those are all very valid points, but the real winner here, the epitome of the Apex Mountain, is Lindsay Lohan.
Lindsay Lohan, oh my god, poor girl.
Which is very sad considering that it says introducing Lindsay
Lohan.
This was like her big break, and obviously she had other movies. She had Freaky Friday, she had Herbie Fully Loaded, she had like her Downward Spiral, but this was like the best that it ever got for her, yet at least.
I so agree. I do think, however, they could remake this movie today with Lindsay Lohan playing the same role. But there's like Californian Lindsay Lohan, but the other one is Lindsay Lohan with that weird Turkish accent that she does sometimes in public nowadays.
I haven't ever heard that or noticed that.
Oh, she's like, this is well documented. Like she like, I think might like think she's Turkish. Like she's gone through like, I mean, you know, she's like kind of had like public meltdowns and stuff. But anyway.
All right, moving on. So typically what we have next is our unanswered questions category, which is a little bit of like silly stuff, like just little tiny things to bring up that we kind of make jokes about. But there are two big things here that I feel like are greater than what else is in that category. So we brought them out. It's now a new category called important points and questions to raise. And first off, I mean, this is like I think we know the answer to this question. And if we are correct, then nothing would have happened in this movie if they were. So are Elizabeth and Nick bad parents?
Yes. Next question.
No. We have to just like break it all down.
Okay, fine. It's so obvious. They are like such patently bad parents.
Right. I think because there's like two main factors. It's the first part of just like this plan in general of, okay, you get this one, I get this one, we never see each other again, done deal, bye.
Like how much
what judge allowed that?
That's true. I do not think a judge signed off on this. I don't think any judge would sign off on this. I think this was done totally extrajudiciously, which makes me wonder, did they even get a divorce? Was this an in-court legal divorce?
How long do we think they were even married? We never really got much, because we know that it was a whirlwind romance to get them married. Was it?
Right. Well, so
like,
they
must have been at least 9 months.
They were married in 1983. They broke up shortly after the birth of the kids, and the kids are 11 they're 11 years and 9 months in 1998 when the movie is set. So, wait, I'm not sure that math really adds up.
If that's the case, then it's 98 minus 11 is
Would be
is
87,
or 87, yeah. And then, so that means
which
they were married for
suggests
4
a
years.
4-year marriage.
Maybe they didn't have them right away. They didn't have the kids right away, though. So it's not because
I'm looking it up.
there's never any explicit statement about like their relationship prior to the kids. So I mean, they could have been married for quite some time, 3 years, and then had the kids. So it's not like they got married and had the kids right away, and that Hallie and Annie lived for 4 years together and have memories of each other, and then were split apart. So I guess that makes sense. I mean, it could be.
Right. I'm really fixated on this because I'm not sure that I have the date correct for, when they were married.
But just in general, you do your research, but this, like in general, the whole plan is something that makes them extremely questionable parents at best. But then I think the thing that really like seals the deal and just like cements it is the fact that they don't notice that they're with a different child
right. No, 100%.
For however long that they've done the swap. I mean, Chessy, like we addressed earlier, Chessy notices immediately with Hallie, or with Annie as Hallie. And meanwhile, Nick is just dumbfounded, can't figure anything out. And then Elizabeth herself, she's better than Nick.
She's busy. But
it's not great.
She's a busy lady. She doesn't have time to, confirm that the child living in her home is actually hers. She's got dresses to design.
The fact that the two girls were able to learn each other over the course of a 8-week summer camp better than the parents were able to learn them over 11 years and 9 months.
That's an indictment.
Exactly.
Also, I mean, the accent, just to speak on that for a second, the accent work alone, incredible.
Mm-hmm.
I do think it is helped by the fact that these are, like, by the movie magic of Lindsay Lohan playing both parts, they are exactly identical, not a freckle in the wrong spot.
Right. I actually had that freckle thought while I was watching. I was like, I feel like one of them would have to have some kind of like better identifying freckle.
Right. In the real world, they would definitely have, one of them would have a freckle right on the tip of their nose. I think the freckle pattern, that would be the like biometric scan that would differentiate the two of them if they were in some like maximum security situation.
Speaking of them doing it with her playing both roles, I wonder, it's not like a crazy question, but just like when they're filming pre-haircut, do you think that she filmed all of her stuff with the long hair first and then like filmed it with the short hair? Or do you think they just used like wigs or extensions or anything like that?
I think entirely possible that it was extensions.
Just a little question.
Again, a little movie magic. You tell me though, you're the film guy.
I mean, I don't know. I have no idea. I don't work in costume design and hair and makeup.
Did I just miss the entirely wig focused episode of Inside the Film Room?
I mean, that's all our Dune correspondent Johnny with his discussion with the hair and makeup guy from Dune. So maybe I'll send that question his way.
Yeah, can we get him to weigh in on this?
Yes, for sure. Well, I'll pass it along for you. But thank you. The next big question before we get into the smaller unanswered questions, not even a question, just an important point to raise.
Who are you to say that my unanswered questions are not as true as yours?
That's true. But the ones that I have said, Drew's keeping all of his stuff hidden. Meanwhile, I have a shared Google Doc.
That's true. I'm keeping it hidden like Hallie kept her infinitesimally unlikely poker hand hidden.
Or like Tie-Dye Girl kept her identity hidden.
Oh, we'll get to that in a second. Yeah, I mean, you can't see me, but I have 4 or 5 11-year-old girls peering over my shoulder at all the notes I have, and they're smirking because they know that it's going to be good.
So my point to raise is that Hallie using Annie's passport to travel to London is a federal crime.
Lock her up. Lock her up.
I guess... I mean, Annie probably staying stateside is some break of visa or passport or something like that. But these are criminals. These are federal criminals. We're doing international criminals.
Right. It is against federal U.S. law, and I imagine that it is also I cannot imagine that it is not against, British law as well. So she is transgressing against 2 sovereign states' codes of law. And for that, I say, send Hallie to The Hague.
Get Sam in here to break down some legal jargon for us. We can build a case against the Parker and James sisters.
I would like nothing more than to have them rot in jail for the rest of their days. What a fun twist that would be to the movie. That's another one.
I was trying to come up with some sort of like alternate ending, not alternate ending, but like a sequel.
You mean apart from the dead grandfather?
Yes, not an alternate ending, a sequel to pitch you. And I had toyed around with some ideas of like Chessy and Martin's offspring, their children, and like Annie and Hallie get hired as babysitters or something like that, or Meredith comes back with a vengeance. But then I really was leaning into the federal or the international criminal route, I think.
Again, a very pre-9/11 world. Like, this would not have happened. This would not have been possible post 9/11.
All right. Let's get into some unanswered questions, I guess. If you still have major ones to address, go ahead.
Well, I do have a major one that was a huge stumbling block for me for the first, umpteen times that I watched this movie, which was, well, for the first couple times before I had any real, or at least any real superficial understanding of air travel, I was like, oh, they just took a faster flight, right? At the end when they beat them there. And then as I watched the movie more, I was just so confused. I was like, this is totally a plot hole. Like, you can't just hop on a flight, an hour or 2 later and still beat them there. That's just not how planes work. What I'm building up to is, I suppose, a previously unanswered question. I'm embarrassed to say
specific to you, not to the movie going public.
Specific to me, but I think it may be enlightening to others, because people of our age, a lot of us just aren't aware of the whole short-lived era of supersonic air travel that existed, and the Concorde was a plane that broke the sound barrier. That was like a model. It was a company or whatever of airlines or of airplanes, and so you could get across the pond. You could get from like New York to London in like 3.5-4 hours rather than 6 hours, 6.5 hours. But those have been discontinued. Like, we don't get there that fast anymore because breaking the sound barrier was such a nuisance. Like, they used a ton of fuel and they were very, very loud. And there was legislation that, stopped Concords. Did you know this?
Yeah. Not at the time that I first watched it, but I remember learning about it.
When did you learn this? And in what context? How did I miss this?
Well, I remember that we watched it together and I remember you asked our mother if she had like ever flown on the Concorde or knew about the Concorde or something like that.
Yes, that was after I had learned independently about supersonic travel.
Because, so yeah, I've not known this since the first time I watched this movie.
But you knew it after I learned about supersonic travel.
I guess so,
and
yes.
Informed you about it. Yes,
sure.
Okay, that's true.
I didn't know the intricacies of the jet fuel and breaking the sound barrier, so I just knew it was a faster plane that got them there that does not exist anymore.
Yes. So, again...
Question answered.
The question answered. The Parent Trap, this ending could not exist as we currently understand air travel. In the year of our Lord 2020, there would not be a happy ending to The Parent Trap.
So now that there could be a happy ending just a little bit later.
No, I think that impossible.
Well, then, because you're right. By the time that Nick and Hallie got there, they would already be at the hospital with grandfather, and
in cardiac arrest.
And then the house would be empty.
And then Hallie
turn around and go home.
Entering the country, the warrant would be out by that point. Her face would be all over the wanted posters in Heathrow. She missed that by an hour. I think you can see them in the background of the movie putting the posters up. But yeah, she would have been.
It's actually the post-credit scene.
Yeah.
Meredith crawls out of the lake that she fell into on the waterfall that she went off.
Yes, exactly. And she immediately calls Interpol.
Yes. So now that we've answered your question, I have a lot of questions about camp.
Okay.
Just a small questions, but just a ton of them.
Yes.
First off, how did they get the beds on the roof? When the prank wars are starting, they're coming back from what seems like a basketball activity or something like that. Hallie says that she's just going to take a nap for the rest of the day. How did Annie and her crew get the beds? A crew of 11-year-old girls moved like 6 or 7 beds on top of the roof.
Superhuman strength.
And where were the Marvas? Where all of the Marva Joe, Marva Steve, Marva where were the Marvas during all of this? And I think what this immediately leads into the next question is that are there no organized group activities at this camp? Because it seems kind of just like a free-for-all. You're like roaming to do whatever you want. Like I said, they just come back from basketball. Hallie says she's going to take a nap for the rest of the day. We previously see, Annie's just coming back from tennis and decides on a whim that she's going to go do some fencing. Like, there's no set schedule except for the march to the isolation cabin. And then it's like, okay, girls, back to your activities. And they're like, okay.
Flanks of girls marching behind them. And like,
that's literally the only thing that they get.
To the isolation cabin, making an example of these twins. That part's so funny to me. No, I think the only organized group activity is probably introduction to like mechanical engineering. The way that these girls like develop some sort of like pulley and lever system to get these.
I mean, clearly there's no curfew.
Why do you say that?
Because they're late at night playing poker in other people's cabins. Then they're skinny dipping. There's nothing, and then there seems to be some sort of like rule because they're sneaking around to go and set some stuff up, but at night. But I assume that there's set schedules for the Grease rehearsals, but.
Right. Yes, we do see the big banner for Grease the Musical coming down at the end of camp. But in your universe of totally unstructured camp, I love the idea of anyone could just pop into any rehearsal and you're Sandy today, you're Danny today.
How do you think the production went? I mean, I guess there was only one person who could have played Danny, right? The one boy at camp.
Which raises the question of, was there some conspiracy theory that like dark forces at Camp Walden conspiring to get this lone boy here so that they could produce a production of Grease with a male Danny?
I also think this is another one I had jotted down, is that do you think that this one boy was just like drowning in chicks all summer long? Because I mean, we know the stereotype around most of these girls, but at the end, he's like, I promise I'll call you. I'll see you next summer. We're going to stay in touch. Like, he's got them. They're wrapped around his finger.
It's a very honeys lined up situation at first glance, but I think it's more of a like gay best friend situation.
Okay. Going back to the isolation cabin, we saw the march there, but like, this seems to be, that happened very quick. I'm very confused about the time of camp. I know it's 8 weeks, but like we don't really know like at what point different things happen, but it seems kind of like the first week was like everything going down. So did they just spend 7 weeks like in the isolation cabin by themselves, or are they still able to participate in activities and then they just have to come back to the cabin? Right. Because if I'm doing that, I want a refund. I'm calling mom. I'm saying, pick me up from this camp. Like, this is not because they literally just spend the rest of the time rehearsing their.
It's truly right. Yeah, I mean, yes, they have to entertain themselves, I think, for the remaining 7 weeks. It's just like, I think at this cruel and unusual camp, this is just the way things work.
It could very easily turn into a horror movie, like in the isolation cabin. We talked about it earlier.
I think one of the funniest moments for me is the begrudging hug between Marva Jr. and Hallie pretending to be Annie at the very end of camp. Like they size each other up for a second. And if I were Hallie pretending to be Annie, I'd be like, bitch, you locked me up for 7 weeks. But she's the bigger person.
She's going to catch a case.
She gives like a nanosecond hug.
I'm pressing charges. This is cruel and unusual. You will be
Marvins
hearing
to
from the
HQ.
James family.
Right.
It is, however, with the theme of the isolation cabin, this portion of the movie is a great quarantine movie. They did like all of the basic events that we've all done in quarantine, like the self haircut, people piercing your ears at home, swapping places with a long lost relative. I mean, it's the usual quarantine activities.
Right. Exactly.
Another question, as we see with the isolation cabin, why did they bring so many decorations to summer camp? I have been to Camp Harrison. I only went for a week at a time though. I didn't bring posters to hang. Like they've got all of the photos of her stuff, like all of her celebrity crushes and everything, Leonardo DiCaprio. Like who brings all that decorations to a summer camp? I mean, it's going to be a temporary.
The funny thing is, you see in the like shared cabin before they get kicked into isolation, that there is not enough space. Like each girl has like a little bedside table. Yet like Annie and Hallie each have enough decorations to like fully furnish the isolation cabin, which is so funny. It's as if Camp Walden says in their like brochure that they send out like for preparing to camp what to bring. They say, well, bring enough decorations to completely deck out the isolation cabin that there's
in case you get sent.
That there's a possibility that you may be sent to for 7 weeks.
Also, are we supposed to believe that people in London have never heard of Leonardo DiCaprio? Or is this just an Annie thing? I guess I feel like a young, cultured woman like that, daughter of Elizabeth James, she would know like the top movie stars.
Yeah, Elizabeth James gets down with Titanic. That was 1997. This is in 1998.
The world knows Leo at this point.
Yes, exactly. He's been introduced. I love their little pieces of paraphernalia though. Especially Annie's little treasure box that has the Queen on it, which I think is like such a funny little British stereotype. Like I just wanted to see Hallie's tin box that has I don't know, a portrait of like Lyndon B. Johnson on it.
That's my camp questions. So any camp questions that you want to get in while we're discussing?
Yes, I would like to. The Oreo and peanut butter. Peanut butter is very difficult to find in the United Kingdom, especially Skippy. Oreos are a little bit easier to find. Do you think that Annie has these 2 American goods imported?
Yes, definitely. Martin stops at nothing to get this for her.
Like,
you know, they probably pulled up in a limo to get their supplies before camp, though.
Right. These are not things that you can pick up at the Tesco on the corner. It makes me wonder since it is such a strange flavor combination that you wouldn't think to do in the United Kingdom, I wonder if Nick introduced it to Elizabeth, and then Elizabeth then introduced it to Hallie.
Now we're digging deeper. I like that.
This is a little character backstory. My other question is, this is the larger question about, you know, just the whole mission of Camp Walden. Do we think it is a conversion camp site? I think we have, I'll just say it, I think we have a lot of lesbians here at Camp Walden for girls. Starting with Tie-Dye Girl.
That was one of my next questions.
She's the most
about her in
obvious
general.
example. But we also have like a lot of girls fencing, a lot of
that little girl.
But then we have the other one who says, "You want me to deck her for ya?" While she's like doing her like Johnny Bravo
fisticuffs.
Yeah, speed bag fists. Meanwhile, both of the Marvas give me huge former lesbian vibes. You know, like at these, you know, Christian conversion camps, they generally have in leadership someone who's like a quote unquote success story. But they still like, you know, seem super like faggy. But I can say that I'm gay. Both of the Marvas, like, you don't start seeming straight. You just say, "Oh, I'm just not attracted to women anymore." And I think there's some real energy there for the Marvas.
I don't know. I mean, we don't know. Maybe there are no organized activities because they want this to be like a self-fulfilling journey. Like they want you to like be able to find your own path and figure it out on your own. And then it also leaves time on the schedule for them to snatch you up and take you to whatever they need to do with you.
Right, exactly. Further evidence.
That's what actually happens in the isolation cabin.
Right. I mean, that's what it was previously.
There are actually multiple isolation cabins.
Right. You see all the like, scratchings on the wall. They're like not, you see like, oh, like Megan 97. I don't think these are girls who are in the isolation cabin just leaving their mark. I think these are like notches on the belt for the Marvas. Like that, there's another one. Megan.
This is getting very dark.
Megan, year of 97. We won her over. Regarding lesbianism, the skinny dipping, when Annie proposes or Hallie, I can't remember which one it is, proposes to jump in the lake naked. You see
Hallie proposes it.
Hallie proposes it. Thank you.
Even more excellent.
Right, exactly. Lot of lesbian excitement there among the friends.
Tie-dye girl right over the shoulder. That was one of my notes about just tie-dye girl in general. I bet she's pumped about the naked cards bet. She's giving Hallie a piggyback ride.
Mm-hmm.
She says that does not seem like a possibility, babe. What do you think she knows about the old camp tradition we later learn about talking to your friends from inside of the closet? I feel like she's probably got a bunch of experience with that.
That was not on my list of evidence, but I think that's the coup de grace right there.
That's what it means when she says that. That's why you're spot on with this conversion camp.
I think that's absolutely right. The only other thing I'll say is as if the jumping in the lake naked were not enough of a treat for these girls, some intrepid young lesbian goes, grab her clothes!
And they probably like went and ran and hid in the bushes instead of running back to their cabin. So they'd watch her come back out naked.
For sure.
I will say I used to think that scene was very scandalous as a child because it was like before I knew of like movie magic and stuff. And so I was like, they actually jumped in the lake naked. Poor Lindsay Lohan. Because it like flashes to like the silhouette view of her like diving in.
Right.
And I'm like, this is scandalous.
Wow, I can't believe she bared it all in her first movie.
At 11 years old.
Yet another young starlet corrupted by the ills of Hollywood.
That's probably what led her down this path.
That nude scene. I agree. I totally agree.
Okay, I have one final unanswered question. You may have a couple more.
I have a few odds and ends.
So mine, just, again, unimportant to the overall plot, but with the questions that we've been raising about grandfather and his cardiovascular health.
Sure.
I think he's in great shape because when we get the 911 dog facts and Hallie as Annie has to run out of the house, go to the telephone booth, sprint through the neighborhood to get there.
He is immediately right there.
She has like a 2-minute conversation on the phone and then comes out of the phone booth and he is right there. So the old man was moving to catch up with her. Like, I'm not sure if I'm buying the cardiovascular, the heart disease, the whatever it was that we had killed him off at the end of our alternate ending.
He's a big smoker. We do know that. We do know that. One note on that scene shortly thereafter when he catches her and says, what's going on? And she says, oh, well, it's a long time to explain. He goes, well, it's a very big park that they're walking through. You could literally see to the end of the park.
I didn't notice that. All right, hit me with your unanswered questions.
Is the statue who salutes her, is that a person pretending to be a statue, or is that a magic statue?
Yeah, I've always wondered. I was like, is this just like, are we dipping into like magical surrealism here?
A little bit of magical realism, yes, exactly. In my heart, it's a magic statue.
It's showing her the wonders of like this new life with her mother and just the greatness of being here.
I think it's entirely possible in this Parent Trap universe that some things are different from the world we live in, as we've established already. Another unanswered question along these lines is, Hallie tells Annie, she's telling her about her own mom, which is kind of funny. But she goes, "Oh my God, she just sold a wedding dress to a princess in Greece." However, the Greek monarchy was abolished in 1973, which leaves us with a couple of possibilities here. The first is that this is some, former deposed princess, because the royal family does still exist. They've just lost their titles. And this young woman is just grasping on to this lost grandiose identity that she has. I'm picturing like a Grey Gardens type of thing where she's no longer relevant, but she's just living out this fantasy with her family where they're still entertaining the thought that they're the royal family of Greece. Second possibility, the way she phrases it, I love this, is mom just sold one of her dresses to a princess in Greece. I love the idea that this is a princess of a different nation or principality, and Greece was merely the point of transaction for the sale.
It was on like a black market deal or something like that.
Right.
It couldn't go down in her home country because it's actually made of like an exotic animal fur.
Right, that Elizabeth sold this black market dress in Greece, in some like back alley in Greece, to the Princess of Denmark. But the third possibility, which is the one that I ascribe to, is that somewhere in the Parent Trap, in the Marva cinematic universe, Nick and Elizabeth meeting, something had a butterfly effect that ended up with the Greek monarchy not being abolished.
Interesting. That's probably I don't know. It all comes back to this international crime, international espionage, something. It's all connected somewhere. Like,
yes,
this is, I don't know if you're familiar with the Release the Snyder Cut movement within
Oh, yeah,
Justice League. Release the Myers Cut. What is she hiding from us?
I think Greece. I think internationalism. I think lesbianism. We need a National Treasure style follow-up where Hallie and Annie go to the island of Sappho and, get to the bottom of this.
Or maybe even throw in some Mamma Mia in there too.
Oh my God.
It's like catered for you.
I know, exactly.
This is movie.
Right up my alley.
All right. Any other unanswered questions that you have?
The last one is, why does Annie speak French when she gets flustered? That's a very, very strange reaction to me.
Yes, I agree with that. I guess it just shows her. We heard Elizabeth talking French, so obviously it's just like this high class, like this value, like of status for them. But I don't know why the association with her being flustered. Why she speaks like that.
Makes more sense if she was doing like I don't know, speaking to Sammy in a like silly little French voice, and she gets walked in on. It doesn't make any sense. The only way that she would be speaking French, the only reason she'd do that when she was flustered, if that was her first language, which raises another question. We won't go down that trail, but something to think about.
Something to think about. So, okay, final big category before we wrap up. Best quotes. Again, Drew and I can go back and forth and quote this entire movie, I would say. I've got a ton of nominees here. They range from something as simple as "Yo, tie-dye girl."
Yo, tie-dye girl.
To like a back and forth exchange.
I bet we
ask
could
you,
do it.
Drew, do you want to... We can each pick a character when it's something more of a discussion and reenact them, or do you want to just be like, oh, the check quote when they're going down the list of what she has at camp? How do you want to address this?
Wait, are the options the California quote or the check quote?
No, I'm saying, no, there's multiple options of quotes here, but I'm saying that when we're discussing them, if it's something that's like, so when she's checking, would you like to just say, Okay, a good quote is when they're checking off the list and it's check for vitamins, check for this. Or do you want to say, okay, you be Martin, I'll be Annie,
Oh,
and
no,
let's
no, no.
reenact it?
I don't think we need to do that except for the California one.
Okay. So speaking of, after Yo Tie-Dye Girl, these are kind of in chronological order. So
Right.
this one,
I'm doing this from memory. I think I can though.
What character would you like to be?
Oh, I want to be both of the lesbians.
Okay. Scene.
Hey, you're from California? Do you live in Hollywood? Do you live next to a movie star?
What are you two, Lucy and Ethel? I've never even been to Hollywood. I live in Napa. That's in Northern California, and I live next door to a vineyard.
A what yard?
A vineyard. It's where you go grow grapes to make wine. That's what we do. Me and my dad, we own a vineyard.
Scene. Amazing scene. So quotable. Not really that important to the plot. But this is one that Zach and I would just quote nonstop.
Oh, what yard?
Oh, what yard? That's one that we say in real time as we're watching the movie.
I also feel like that's a good one for just the people 11-year-olds. I feel like that's a very common thing. Like when I was 11, if someone said they're from California, I probably think they live in the Hollywood sign.
Oh, for sure. And surfed to work.
Right. It's a very that stereotype, that generalization, it's very fitting for 11-year-olds. So I think it's a good real scene, I would say. All right. This one, let's also reenact this one. Would you like to be Martin or Annie?
This is the I have to look this one up. Is it on your doc?
It's on the Google Doc. It's on the Google Doc. So this is he's dropping her off at camp. They have they're running through the list of supplies. Are you Martin or are you Annie?
Whichever one you want me to be. You're calling the shots here, host.
Shall we review your mother's list?
Mm-hmm.
Now let's see. Vitamins?
Check.
Minerals?
Check.
List of daily fruits and vegetables?
Check. Check for fruits. Check for vegetables. Go on. And
then later on within this discussion,
maybe. But what about the list? He asked for the list of daily fruits and vegetables.
Okay, you're breaking up the most important part of this quote here.
Sorry, go on.
Which is at the very end when he gives her the pack of cards and says, maybe you'll actually find someone on this continent who can whip your tush at poker.
Whip your tush. Which, again, as we've established, just means getting a better hand by sheer luck.
And then with the handshake, this is all kind of thrown in at this drop-off scene. With the handshake, as Drew and I addressed, that we do as well. Missing you already, queen of my heart.
Kiss.
Take care, old bean.
Oh, love it.
Love it. Old bean.
Old bean.
Another one that I have on my list is when they realize their resemblance between each other, and it's just the all-time roast from Hallie to Annie. Hallie's downplaying it. Why is everyone staring? Don't you see it? See what? They talk about the resemblance, then she goes into the turn sideways, now the other way. Well, your eyes are much closer together than mine. Your ears stick out, your teeth are crooked, and that nose. Well, don't worry.
Those things can be fixed. Incredible. Wow. Just absolute takedown. My favorite part of this scene, though, is one of the extras has a little line. Maybe it's ADR. They added it in after. But it's such a funny telegraphic narration line where they turn to each other and they see each other and they gasp, right? And it is so clear that they look alike. They're literally both Lindsay Lohan. But there's an extra who goes, oh, they look alike. We got it. Thank you.
That's Nancy Meyer spoon feeding us there. Come on, Nancy.
Trust your audience.
So also another thing here, just again, not relevant to the plot really at all, but when Hallie, they're discussing their parents splitting up and she says, scary the way nobody stays together anymore. It's this is not something we talked about. The Hollywood thing.
48-year-old.
Right. We talked about the Hollywood thing being a very real 11-year-old quote. And this is not something an 11-year-old would say.
This is like a wide mom quote.
She sounds like she's like getting her hair done at like a salon or something, and just read a tabloid, like read about Brad and Angelina splitting up.
Yes, exactly.
Great gif here, very usable. A meme when Annie says, "Will you stop thinking about your stomach at a time like this?" Anytime that someone's just too hungry, it's great stuff.
I also had that one written down. I'm looking at your list now, and I have a couple that are before your next.
Fill us in.
I love Marva saying, "Last call, Annie James." She's called for her car a couple times. And I love the idea of last call as if Annie James...
We're sending them away.
...in her car. She would be stuck. She would just be sitting back to the isolation cabin for the remaining, 9 months of the year until it was next season at Camp Waldron for girls.
That's true. I never thought that deeply into it, but...
hostage in Maine.
Also, great quote, the sugar and the salt, salt in the sugar. Oh my, where's she off to now?
Now where did she go?
I think we need to check her into to get her a cognitive evaluation.
Yeah. Identify the rhino and the elephant and the lion.
It's easy. It's rhino. It's sugar. It's salt.
It's strawberry.
Any other ones before my next one?
No, you go ahead.
So this is another all-time roast. Hallie, it's just the character, the persona of Hallie that keeps zinging people, because this is Annie as Hallie.
Spiritually Hallie, right?
She just roasts her father when he's trying to introduce the idea of marrying Meredith. And she has the, "Meredith is part of our family? I think it's an awesome idea. Inspired. Brilliant, really. Totally. It's like a dream come true. I've always wanted a big sister. You're going to adopt Meredith. That's so sweet." And that's just like a, Nick, come on, man. Even your daughter's calling you out on this ridiculous age gap.
I know. So I think one of mine did precede this, actually, which is when Nick is getting fake Hallie's temperature on Meredith to begin with for the first time before introducing the prospect of marriage. And he asks her what she thinks about her, and she goes, "She has good hair, nice teeth. She can spell the word you." Because Meredith early in the movie...
Y-O-U.
Y-O-U.
That is a good one. I also used to think it was very scandalous whenever she would say sexy, when Lindsay Lohan would say sexy.
Oh, yeah.
They had that little chat in the swing set.
Yet again, Lindsay Lohan corrupted by Hollywood, making her say nasty 4-letter words. My all-time favorite quote of the movie, though, it did happen before what you just said, and it's truly my favorite quote from the movie, and I think it's one of perhaps two lines that this character has. This is Richard, Meredith's gay assistant, and they're about to zoom off in the golf cart, and Meredith says that she's going to send Hallie to Timbuktu or whatever, Switzerland. And Richard goes, "Ooh, ice woman." The best line in the movie.
When we do a full rewatchables episode, we typically have a category that's the bit player, the small person who just absolutely did the most with the little that they were given. I think he would be a great candidate. You want me to take her out? That girl would be a great candidate as well.
Decker for you, yeah.
There are some good people in here that just really take advantage of their limited screen time. This next one for me, it's always a good one that we quote, but I've been questioning it since this most recent rewatch, and that's when Vicky, Meredith's mother, when she's meeting the family, she goes, "Hello, pet. You may call me Aunt Vicky."
Hello, pet.
It always seems we always thought she was talking to Sam, or to Sammy, the dog.
You thought that.
But because that makes sense, because it's pet, it's the dog, he's right there. But the camera cuts to Annie as Hallie, and I'm like, is she speaking to Hallie?
Oh, she's 100%. She's always been talking to Hallie.
It's so strange.
Like a pet, a very, very old school term of affection, term of endearment. But it's, yes,
Why would she be Aunt Vicky though? Why wouldn't it be Grandma Vicky?
Like second marriage, like Aunt Vicky in the way that just like someone who's like semi-family and close, but an older woman, just like automatically an aunt.
That's a good one because that's special in our history because that's been oh, hello, pet. You may call me Aunt Zach or Uncle Zach. Like that's something that we definitely have said to Apollo, and I've said it to Remy. Like, it's one that we use in real life. And then I have one more. Do you have any other quotes to fill in before this last one?
Just Chessy having great, comic chops when she says she's making fun of Elizabeth being drunk, and she says, "I could have met you upstairs."
Yeah, that is good. And then she's like, "Oh, I knew I always liked you," when she remembers her and stuff. It's good. Chessy's an MVP. But my last one is just the entire London finale reveal, like you were talking about with the Concorde flight. The reveal at the end, they're there, and Nick gives his big monologue. Elizabeth replies, he made the mistake of not coming after her the first time. Not going to do that again, no matter how brave you are, Lizzie.
Oh.
And then Elizabeth's like, I suppose you just expect me to go weak at the knees and fall into your arms and cry hysterically and say we'll just figure this whole thing out, a bicontinental relationship with our daughters being raised here and there, and you and I just picking up where we left off and growing old together, and come on, Nick, what do you expect? To live happily ever after? Yes, to all of the above, except you don't have to cry hysterically. Oh, yes, I do.
So gorgeous.
Yes, that is the signature Nancy Meyers climax there. That really brings everything together, brings it home. Do you have a pick? I know we listed all of those, a lot of great quotes. What is your favorite? I think you mentioned it.
Ooh, Ice Woman.
That is the favorite quote?
No, I guess not. I mean, my most quotable, probably my favorite quote is, "Hello, pet, you may call me Aunt Vicky."
Yeah, I think that, and "Hey, you're from California," that exchange.
Right. And I didn't list this as a quote because it's barely a quote, but "Morning, Marvas." Marvas?
And "Yo, tie-dye girl."
Love
those are
one.
all, I feel like
we've not narrowed it down at all. We've just named all of them again and added a couple.
Well, those are the ones that I would say there are better quotes in regards to the storyline and everything here, but those are the ones that we use on a quotability basis here.
For sure.
Okay, final category. We're wrapping it up. Who won this movie? I mean, there's a couple nominees. The Lindsay Lohan, obviously, introducing Lindsay Lohan. We said this was her apex mountain. She peaked here. I also would like to pitch Chessy and Martin as individuals and as a couple, as an item. I believe Chessy is the emotional anchor of this film.
Agreed.
She really holds it all down. Martin is a scene stealer. When Hallie reveals herself to Liz, and he says, "I've never been this happy in my entire life." He gets the Speedo scene, his romance with Chessy. I did make the comparison. He's kind of like Gary from Veep as he recommends outfits to Elizabeth.
Oh, I see that.
But I think it would be...
Says, I'd wear this number if I were meeting the love of my life. This number thing is very funny. That's
very
exactly
Gary.
It refers to like various shades of lipstick.
Yes, exactly. But I mean, I think those are my two nominees. Do you have any other last minute pitches to the audience?
Well, setting aside Gay Richard, because I don't think that there's the political will to name him the winner of this movie as much as I might like to make it so. I think Chessy, 100% Chessy. She is unrivaled in this movie.
Yeah, I think that's my pick as well. I mean, obviously this movie doesn't exist without Lindsay Lohan. And she again, like we said, she peaks here. But I think it's Chessy all the way. This is on Lisa Ann Walters' IMDb page. The Parent Trap is the #1 movie she's known for. So,
well, she was only in like a few other she was in War of the Worlds, and she was
annoying in that, right?
Chessy, yeah. She is very annoying. She does not handle the apocalypse well. Very unlike Chessy. Chessy would be an emotional rock under those circumstances as well.
Wow, she's just credited as bartender in War of the Worlds. The disrespect.
The disrespect. Goodness gracious.
She was also in the movie Drillbit Taylor, and she was in Bruce Almighty. So some nice like late 2000s, early 2000s comedies.
Right. Maybe Chessy is secretly Greek royalty. I'd like to think that.
That's the spinoff. That's the one. That's what we're looking for here.
Princess Diaries 4.
Yes, Genovia. I bet Genovia gets tied in here somehow.
Sure.
We're really taking a turn here, so let's wrap this up. Thank you, Drew, for joining us for this emotional, very personal episode. Great discussion on The Parent Trap.
It's been a pleasure, Zachary.
We'll have to do this again sometime with another movie that
only with The Parent Trap.
Not Ratatouille.
We'll do another couple hours on it.
Yes, Parent Trap Part 2. Not a second movie, but it's just more discussion about this.
Right, exactly.
Thank you all to the audience. Thank you all for listening. We hope you enjoyed this installment of All Timers as much as we did. Thank you again to Drew, sharing your expertise on The Parent Trap, really diving deep. Be sure to tune back in next week for another all-time classic. But until then, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, at Inside Film Room. I guess only a couple more weeks on TikTok. And please subscribe, rate, and review on Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.